E41 Marketplace Ministries. It's all about your business, and it's all about our Father's business. It's ministry outside the box. No matter what your role is in the business world, E41 Ministries is a special place where we can walk worthy of the vocation wherewith we are called, just as Ephesians 4:1 commands us. In today's busy and frenetic world, it's a blessing to know that God has a plan to bring hope, comfort, and peace through Marketplace Ministry. The E41 Marketplace Ministry of the Fellowship, it's a kingdom-building business. Hi, I'm Kerry Fink with E41 Ministries Television. E41 Ministries is an outreach of the Fellowship, and as you may be aware, E41 stands for Ephesians 4:1. It's walk worthy in the vocation to which we're called. And so that's really what we want to talk about on E41 TV. We want to talk to people who are in church and they're busy working on developing and growing the kingdom from their particular point that they're holding down. And how do we make the people that are coming to our ministry or engaged with our church, how do we make them effective? We teach them on Sunday, and we give them a lot of guidance, but what do we do when they go back into the workplace Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? How do we train them to be effective at building the kingdom of God? And then if you're a person who is maybe in the marketplace, you're working, you may be working at a job, you may be working in education, you may be working for a government entity. How, as a Christian, can you make a difference? And as we all know, it's not always easy being a Christian in a workplace, because oftentimes it can be a hostile environment to people of faith. So that's what we really hope to accomplish today. And sitting to my right, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of E41 Ministries, Dr. Dave Robinson. Thanks for making time to be with us today. I know you've got a busy schedule.
Well, thank you, Kerry, and we appreciate taking time to do this for us and be a part of the team to develop E41. So it's just great to be with you again today. And
as a footnote, I want to say we're actually on location in Reston, Virginia, and we're here actually at the Fellowship's One Conference. This is the annual meeting of the Fellowship. It's being held in Reston, Virginia, just outside the nation's capital. And we've really had just an incredible time. There's been some amazing speakers, just really great education, great training, great equipping, just great people here at the Fellowship, I think is a way to say it. And speaking of great people, we had the opportunity of running into some good friends of yours. It's Dr. Denny Nissley, and his wife, Sandy. And so you guys have a fantastic ministry called Christ in Action. And as we were talking about this before we started taping, it was fascinating to hear not only your personal story of how you have been involved in ministry over the years, really fighting the battle in the streets, but then how you've taken it to this whole other level. Could you give us a little bit of an introduction and a background to all you do?
Absolutely, Kerry. It's good to be here. Thanks for allowing Sandy and I to come. Dr. Robinson and I have been friends for more years than I'll admit right here on camera. But we've been good friends for a long time, been in many trenches together for the kingdom of God. And the ministry of Christ in Action is basically, we're a disaster relief ministry. We go in after tornadoes, hurricanes, terrorist attacks, wildfires, whatever would put people in peril, take out communities and stuff. We have a couple of $1 million worth of equipment to go in and to help people in time of need. We're the ones on 9/11, just down the road here at the Pentagon, that we were able to go in the parking lot. We set up a kitchen in the middle of the parking lot, and we fed over 55,000 meals to the recovery workers. And by setting up the dining room, which is almost a 9,000 square foot tent, and by feeding all the workers, it gained us access to speak to the workers that were seeing things and doing things in the rubble that most of us don't even imagine. And they would come to us, and we were able to counsel them, minister to them, share with them. And then people from around the world, dignitaries, would come, and they would want to see, how does America handle a violent attack on their military headquarters? And they would see the setup, the tents and the feeding, and wonder how that's happening. They would say, well, this is Dr. Nissley with Christ in Action. They're doing this. We do not get any government funding. We funded this out of the body of Christ. And they would ask me, why are you doing this? And I got to share my personal testimony of how God delivered me from drug addiction, alcoholism, and a life of crime and a life of dumb, and to come into the kingdom of God, how God forgave me. I was crippled. I walked with a brace on my leg. They were going to amputate my leg. And the day I got saved, they said, Jesus heals crippled people today like he did when he walked on earth. And I thought, well, if he did it when he was here and he's still here, I guess he still does. They prayed for me. I took my brace off, and I've been walking 37 years on that leg that they were going to cut off. And I get to share this with them. I got to share my testimony with the entire Joint Chiefs of Staff, with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, with Marion Barry, the former mayor of Washington, D.C., with Ted Kennedy, the late senator, with Jesse Jackson, and with dignitaries and world leaders from around the world that would come. And it just opened up the doors to share Christ, because we had that 4-letter F word, food. And we had the other 4-letter F word, free. So you have that free food, and people will come, they will listen, and I get to share my story and my testimony. And so we can go into a community. We can serve about 15,000, maybe 18,000 meals a day. We have all of our own equipment. We have a 18-wheeler that we can do 800 hot showers a day. We have our own potty trailers that we take in. We can take in 6,000 gallons of fresh water at a time. We have generators. We have excavators, skid steers, track loaders, chainsaws, anything to go in after a tornado, hurricane, floods, and help clean up. We can, after Hurricane Sandy, we gutted over 200 homes that had water in. We gutted it out, cleaned the house out, ready to rebuild. We went in, rebuilt some homes and things like that. And when you get into somebody's home like that, they say, why are you doing this? Because we do it for free. And we get to say, well, it's just like salvation. Jesus gave us salvation. He didn't charge us for it. He paid a high price for it. And so that's why we do this, because, Kerry, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the actions speak louder than words.
There's no question about it. In fact, one of the things we were talking about before we actually started the program was this fact that a lot of times as Christians, we're so busy to rush to tell the message, the good message of Jesus came to save you, that sometimes we trip over the fact that people are in some serious trouble. They can't even focus on the message at that point. How do you address that when you're kind of like in this kind of disaster situation where people have just had their lives totally turned upside down, and they probably don't even know what, they're in shock. They don't know what to do next. How do you walk them through that?
Well, what we do is we'll go in, and let's say it's a flood, like Hurricane Sandy, and they've had water in their house. We'll send people in to do assessments. Oftentimes my wife, Sandy, will go and we'll get the referral. Somebody said this person needs help. We'll contact them. We'll meet them at their house. And Sandy will go in and she'll talk to the family. She'll talk to the homeowner. She'll look at their home. And if they had 2 feet of water, she'll say, well, we'll cut this sheetrock out at 4 feet. And she'll explain what we're going to do in their home so that they can get rid of the mold, so they can get rid of the water that's been contaminated and start to put their lives back together. And she'll talk to the family and tell them what we'll do when we'll be there. Make sure that they've contacted their insurance, make sure this insurance is signed off, that FEMA knows about it, and help them cover their bases, because sometimes they're in such shock, they don't even think of the bases they need to cover, let alone how to do it. And our assessment people will do that, and oftentimes it's Sandy. And then she'll say, well, can I have a prayer with you? Or she'll say, where were you when the storm hit? And then they unload, and they'll talk.
And last fall, we responded to the tornadoes in Washington, Illinois. Right. And we helped a couple that had been married for 51 years and survived the tornado in the basement of their home. And he literally saved his wife's life, because she said she got on her knees and put her face in his lap.
They were in the basement.
In the basement. And they, he put his hand over her like this, and hunkered down, and debris hit his hand, broke his hand, made a lump on her head. And when we met them,
and smashed her face.
Her face was black and blue, where her glasses had impacted her face
on his leg.
Oh my goodness.
They were 80 years old, something like that. Yeah. And I looked at her and said, did he hit you? And she says, he's my hero. He saved my life. And she told the story of how it was. It broke his hand. His hand was all swollen up. A brick must have hit it. And Sandy got to spend a lot of time with the family and talked to him. It was cold out, so she sat in the car where it was warm and talked with him. And we tore his whole house down and put it out to the curb to be destroyed, just to be taken away so they could rebuild their lives.
Now, it must be while you're going into the most heart-wrenching and difficult kind of scenarios like that, where people are just in kind of a bewildered maze, it must be also at a certain point very, very gratifying when you can see the results of what you guys have been working on as people come out of that phase of their lives. You must have some amazing testimonies that have come out of it. It
is. After 2 or 3 weeks after like Hurricane Ike in Galveston or the tornadoes in Oklahoma City, in about 2 to 3 weeks, the Red Cross pulls out. And then FEMA starts pulling some of their resources back because FEMA doesn't want to have the community dependent on them. They want to be there at the beginning. Well, from the time they pull out until down the road, people start rebuilding their houses. During that time period is where all the social ills come to play. People turn to drug abuse, they turn to alcohol abuse, spouse abuse, child abuse, suicide. There's all the social ills that come in because the people are distraught. They've never been through this. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to navigate. They're distraught. And so Christ in Action is there to help clear their debris away, but to get our foot into their life, to be a voice of hope, to let them know that, you know what, you're a normal person with a normal reaction to an abnormal event.
Absolutely.
And it's okay not to be okay right now because we're here to help you. We want to help you. And we want to walk through this with you. And we say that we bring hope to America's families. And we walk with them. We stay as long as we can. And when they start seeing some of their neighbors starting to rebuild their house, starting to put sheetrock back in or starting to build a house or something, then that's light at the end of the tunnel. That gives them enough hope. They're like, okay, they're doing that. I'm on the path for this. I can see that I'm headed that way. Then we can pull out and we turn our cases over to long-term recovery because a lot of ministries that come in for long-term recovery to help rebuild, and we'll say, well, this family, you can do this, family needs this, and we'll turn our cases over to them. And then they have hope for the future, and we can back out. And we always set up with a local church because Christ in Action is going to be gone. Yeah. We're going to be gone. But the church is going to stay there. And we want people looking to the church. We want people looking to God for their answers. All the research says that, 60% of the people turn to religion in a time of need, in a time of disaster. And we want them, if they turn to the church, what are they going to find? They want to find Jesus. They don't want to find religion. They don't want to find man-made traditions. They need to find Jesus. After 9/11, anybody that's been involved in a church, after 9/11, the terrorist attacks on America, every church in America was packed out. They were packed out, but they're not now.
No, right.
Why? What did they not find? What did they not get when they came to our churches? What did they get? Many of them got religion. Religion will burn you out because it's rules and regulations without a relationship. And rules without a relationship breeds rebellion. Rules with relationship breeds a covenant. And did they find rules? Did they find regulations? Or did they find a relationship with Jesus? And that's what we want to present.
That's so profound what you just said, because it really ties so much with a lot of what, as you know, Dr. Dave wrote a book called Idol in the Marketplace. And what he really refers to is that one of the greatest things that we can all work on together to improve the effectiveness of churches in the kingdom is to get this awareness that it is not about, just a Sunday morning experience or a way to escape the world for a few hours by going to church, but that we're actually called to be in the world. And I just wanted to ask you to kind of like dovetail on that a little bit from your perspective, because it really seems like he's echoing a lot of the sentiments that you found true in that as well.
Well, just let me share that it was Denny probably about 30 years ago that walked into my life as a street evangelist. Mm-hmm. I'd heard about this guy, and then I met him. And he asked me the question. He said, have you ever led a soul to Christ outside of a controlled situation? Mm. I said, what do you mean? He said, either in your car, in your house, in this building. Have you ever led a soul to Christ out there? I said, not that I can think of. He said, well, tomorrow we're going to go do it. And so the next day, we're at the street corner 2 blocks from our church. He walks up to a young man. He said, if you were to die right now, do you know where you'd spend eternity? And the young man said, no. Do you? He said, absolutely. If you have Jesus, you'll spend it in heaven. If you don't, you'll spend it in hell. And I thought, well, this is going to be a divine moment here. And he pulled out his Bible, showed him the plan of salvation, and led the young man to the Lord. He got on his bus and went on his way. He said, all right, Dave, we're going down the next corner. It's your turn. And Kerry, I know without a doubt, God set it up. Because when I asked the question, he said, no, I don't, but it's all I've been able to think about for 6 months.
Wow.
What happens after I die? I turned to Denny, I said, wow. He said, well, I told you the fields are white, and I'll just lead him to the Lord. And so I did. 6 months later, he takes me to Mardi Gras on Fat Tuesday, throws me in the deep end of the pool, and I'm down preaching on Bourbon Street with 17 people, and it changed my life forever. So I see his gifting as really a activation. When you use, it's 2 compounds you put together and it forms and hardens. It's, I forget what they call that, but anyhow, Epoxy. Thank you. He's the one that is the activator for many in the church. And I see he's one of those that if you get around him, he's not going to let you remain idle in the marketplace.
Good.
Well, and that's the thing. So many of the people that come on our relief efforts, they work and they tell their boss, say, listen, I'm a Christian and I'm working with this ministry, Christ in Action. They do disaster relief and I want to go help every time they deploy. And some of the employers say, well, give me a week's notice and you can go for 2 weeks. Some say, give me 2 weeks notice and we'll let you go for 2 weeks. Some say, okay, well, let's make it so that you give me a day and you can go. Mm-hmm. And many of them, their employers say, and we'll pay you for those 2 weeks.
Wow.
That'll be our contribution to help the community to recover. And then other people, it's like after 2 or 3 weeks, I can get off and come. And then by then, the early people that come, they've got to get back to work. Sure. And they are working in the workplace. And what we train them is when you get back to the workplace, you're still in the full-time ministry.
Yes.
You're still on duty for God. You just have somebody else signs your paycheck. Mm-hmm. It's not an organization. It's a corporation. And they sign your paycheck and they're paying you, but God's called you. They hired you, but God's called you.
Wow.
And what you do, and when they come and deploy with us, it's just like a vitamin boost or something like that, so that they get this shot in the arm and they're back at the marketplace and they're doing their job. They do it well. There's so many people in the marketplace that'll preach about Jesus, but they're lousy workers. Mm-hmm. They're sloppy employees. They're careless with and we tell them, say, listen, when you go back to work, you be the best employee. You be the strongest employee. We've had people that have said, you know what, I'm going to deploy with these people. And the boss says, if you go deploy with them, you're fired. Mm-hmm. And they'll leave their job. Mm-hmm. And they'll come deploy with us. Well, I can't tell you how many of them go back and the boss is like, okay, we'll hire you back. Some of them got promotions because They're not just Christians in the marketplace. They're good workers.
Right.
They're solid workers. I teach my kids. I teach my friends. If you're going to be in the marketplace, you be the best one.
Absolutely.
You be the first one there, the last one to leave. You're not waiting for 5 o'clock. You're like, oh my gosh, it's been 5 o'clock before you get out of there. You don't just sit around when there's nothing to do. You create something to do, and you be there, and you be the best employee that you can be. And they will treat you that way. They will give you the time off. They will give you the liberty. They will help you to do more things for God.
You know, what you're saying is so true, because in several of the episodes, just even some of the interviews that we've done recently, we hear there's a common theme that seems to come through, is that people who are really committed Christians in the marketplace, they really serve their workplace in a spirit of excellence, in a way that really, rather than shouting at somebody about you need Jesus, it seems to be less about what you say and more about what you do. Because we've heard story after story of people, for example, they may be working in a government type of government funded type of charity or that's addressing some needs, so they aren't even allowed to say, let me pray for you. Mm-hmm. But yet they find people will come to them simply because they recognize there's something that these people represent that is sort of, to some extent, mystifying to them.
Yes.
And they're like, they sense that this is a person who can help me.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how that happens. And so over and over, everybody says it's what you do that matters and how you take that. So when you, if somebody feels a calling that they would like to get involved with you guys, we have a few more minutes, but I'd like to just ask you that. How would you encourage a pastor, or who can help, who can be of benefit to you and what you guys are doing?
Anybody with a strong back and a weak mind. Because we'll work them like a rented mule. No, anybody, if you're out there and you want to help us, go to our website. It's ChristInAction.com. I tell people we're Christ in action, not Christ in a committee. Mm-hmm. Doesn't take a committee. We don't have red tape because Jesus shed his red blood. Mm-hmm. But go to ChristInAction.com. Give us your name and your email address. We don't send snail mail out anymore. Everything's electronic. And when we deploy, what we do is we send out an email saying we've sent out an assessment team. That team's out there to assess if we need to come, and if so, where we would go. And when we send out an email and we say we've sent out an assessment team, that's a shot across your bow saying we may deploy. Mm-hmm. It's looking like we're going to deploy. And then you can start getting your ducks in a row so that if you want to come and be with us. And then when we make the decision to deploy that we are going to go, we're going to put assets on the ground, we send out an email, and then people go to our website, ChristInAction.com, and right on the front page, it says volunteer. And you click on that volunteer thing and you give us all your information. You tell us when you can come, how long you're going to be staying, because we want to know that you're coming. We want to know that you're going to be there. We want to know what you're capable of doing. And then once you get there, it's your responsibility to get there. But once you get there, we provide your food and your lodging for you. And it's good stuff. It's good food, and it's your sleeping bag, our church floor. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's concrete. Bring an air mattress and sleep on the air mattress. And we give you directions, and we want to know when people are coming so that we can set up jobs, so we can set up people's homes. We can say, yes, we can be at your home on Tuesday. We're going to bring about 20 people over to clear out your house, because our volunteer coordinator realizes, we got 20 people coming, so we'll line up the work. And if we don't have as many people coming, we don't make promises to the homeowners, because the last thing you want to do is promise a homeowner something and then you can't do it. So we always undercommit and overproduce rather than overcommit and underproduce. So you can go to our website, ChristInAction.com, fill out you can go there today, fill out the volunteer registration form. You'll be in our database. We'll communicate with you via email, and you'll know where we're at. And once you sign up to come to a deployment with us, you get an email back telling you what to pack, what to expect. There's videos on the line that you'll be required to watch, short videos of what to expect and how to get there and what we're going to do and what it's going to look like. We call our base camp, we call it Camp Hope, what Camp Hope is going to be like and what's expected of you. And if you're an adult enough that you can get there, then we believe you're an adult enough to follow the
You have to be 18.
The order of the day. Yes, you're right. Thanks. You got to be 18. We don't take anybody under 18. It's hazardous conditions.
Sure.
It's not a place to bring your youth group. This is a place to bring adults that want to function and make a difference.
That's fantastic. Well, Dave, as we get ready to close out, it really is fascinating how these two sides of it really work together. Everything that sounds like it's a very important work that Christ in Action is doing. It sounds like it was a very important work that Denny was doing in your life at that moment in time. And I just want to ask you for your comments or thoughts or suggestions for people who are viewing the show on this.
Well, it's just great to connect with Denny and Sandy again after a lot of years. We've kind of seen each other through the years, but it's great to have them join the fellowship today and become part of our E41 ministry.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be a great blessing to the fellowship and the churches that are part of the fellowship and the ministries. And so we're just glad to have them
To the body of Christ.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. It's all about kingdom building. And I think that's the real takeaway that we hope that we give to you as you look through the different episodes of E41 Ministries. There are a lot of people who are laboring in the fields. And as you guys have both pointed out, the fields are ripe for harvest.
Yes.
And the key is that we got to get out there and work in the field. So I really want to salute you for everything that you guys are doing, because it makes a difference, particularly at the time. That's when people oftentimes find out that they need Jesus, is when they're at that breaking point. And it's good to know that there are people who care enough to get involved in that particular time.
Well, thanks for having us on. And Dave, again, thanks for networking. You're the networking guru. Thanks for networking. Thanks for being my friend for all these years.
Likewise.
All right. And with that, I'm Kerry Fink. Thanks so much for joining us for E41 TV, and God bless you.